Let the record show Timmy's taking a knee. We're gonna sing this national, no, Mike's gonna sing national.
No kneel here. Stand right up and stand straight.
Yeah.
No.
There we go. Okay, all rise for the national anthem. Or I mean, the pledge allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Okay, we get the motion for the approval of the agenda for today.
I'll make that motion.
One second.
Any additions, corrections for the agenda? All those in favor?
Aye.
Resolution, I get a motion for the approval of the minutes from the June 10th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Fred, second. Anything changing? All those in favor?
Aye.
Public, nobody's here. I will go through communications as quick as I can. Matt Sarvel's here today, our senior engineer from Barton Legidus. He could actually, and he went and visited Mr. Appleby's location on Second Ave prior to meeting here today, and he's going to be coming up. If he talked to John Carter, I haven't talked to them since they met, but my assumption is they're going to come up with some kind of recommendations. Maybe it might be a cheaper, easier way to doing it than what John has suggested, which would cost like $25,000 to make sure one person gets quality drinking water.
So we did look at, I was actually just there beforehand, we did look at running a service line across and using the 2 side yards, just a 2-inch line. John's gonna get a price on it. There's also another way that potentially we could do it with a meter pit and a little remote control, a little battery powered valve that's on a timer that opens and flushes that line. So we're gonna look into both options, and John's gonna talk with Crowley, the contractor, about what it would cost to dig it, but as far as pricing, I'm not sure yet, but we'll report back to it.
Okay, great. So, that happened, a few weeks ago. It's been a constant problem, Mr. Appleby, that he's at the end of the line and he's getting dirty water. So, we're doing the best we can for what we got.
Is there hydrants there?
No,
So we can't flush it either.
no.
It's a 2-inch service line, basically at Letchworth and Second. It's just a 2-inch service line. They probably built one house and they keyed off of it and just kept going. So it's kind of a little bit of a hodgepodge job, but at the same token, to go all the way down to Second Ave and move it back in with like Melrose or something would be significant money for very little benefit. So the plan may be to connect Second Ave with First Ave across. Mr. Appleby owns both properties, so across side yard there's already an easement for sewer. That's what we the extent of it, and just looping it will get water flowing through there more than sitting at the dead end and coming out of his faucet.
So see, everybody's abreast of what's going on there. Next thing was we got a call from Mrs. Butts. Mrs. Butts, that's on Second Ave. She lives across, from she's very upset we didn't have flags at 4th of July. Bob had tried to order flags. They on back order. I tried ordering them myself yesterday, and the guy told me they're looking at least another month, if not 2 months, before they can even be shipped out. If they can get them. We're trying to, the reason we took the flags down was one, they were filthy, they were breaking, and they didn't look presentable.
Time to replace.
Huh?
Time to
replace. The bad news is we didn't budget for that, but it's something that if the board agrees, I'll get the quotes. I'm getting through the procurement policy, getting 2 competitive bids on the price because, again, they don't even sell the flags individually now. You got to buy aluminum poles. We have the wooden poles which are snapping, so the metal poles may actually be better, so they won't snap when they get rotted and stuff like that. So we're working on flags right now. Mr. Francis Shaw had some email about everybody neighbor. He had complaints about neighbor dumping water on his yard, dumping his trash can being left out all year, 364 days out of the year, 24/7. The guys take their trash from the house to the curb instead of just keeping the trash can next to their house. And so it's there constantly. So Patrick, also they weren't cutting the grass next to the swale, so Patrick actually sending them the owner and occupant a letter saying that one, it's a code violation, copy the code violation for not cutting the grass, and number two, asking them to bring your trash cans in without trying to change local law. We're trying to just do it on a volunteer basis without going through the thing about local law. We'll see what happens, but Patrick sends that letter out.
So Supervisor, it may be, I didn't get a chance to look because of my schedule today, but it may be part of the restrictive covenants of the Dickman track about.
But that's up to that
Yeah,
homeowners
I'm running up
themselves.
to town, but it might be a nap for Tony, but
Yeah.
I haven't looked at
That's
it.
a good idea. So,
Yeah,
I can tell him to recommend.
I know they have restrictive covenants regarding boats, boats, and stuff like that being out, stuff like
Yeah.
that, so.
Okay.
What's the Dickman track? Where Tony lives, the Green Lakes Turn.
It's,
Okay, it's
you
called
know,
Riverside Trace, but.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Dickman
It's
track
Is there a homeowners
association?
not an official one. It's, you know what, it's straight away where Jane Fox lives now.
Yeah.
It's on the corner as you come out toward
Striker.
Stryker. Yeah. And the bend right there on the inside circle.
So just for purpose of conversation, we've talked about every meeting. It seems like there's something that comes up about this code or that code, and is it appropriate? Is it not appropriate? And what should we do to rectify this? I think from looking at the town's code that there's probably a good amount of revision that could be done on the code to make it more relevant and kind of we talked either offline or through an email or something at some point about unregistered vehicles and things like that. I think that it's unreasonable to say that you can't have one unregistered vehicle on your property. And that's what the code says. You can't have one unregistered vehicle on your property. That's crazy.
Yeah.
If you got a car you're working on, if you've got a boat you're working on, if you've got whatever, technically you're out. Or if you take a vehicle and you buy a new vehicle and you want to sell it and you put it out in your side yard with a for sale sign on it, you're out of code. So I think that there's I think that because sometimes it seems like, you know, and I understand that the code officer only has so much time and we only pay him to do so much, but but just kind of being reactionary to complaints. I'm not a big fan of that, because then the only time that there's any attention made to the code is when somebody's making a lot of noise. So I would I think that it's worth discussion, maybe not today, but down the road to set up maybe a committee to review the code, see if there's changes that need to be made, and then do it all at once as opposed to piecemeal and this code, that code.
Well, there has been the chair of the zoning board, the chair of the planning board, the code enforcement officer, and Tony Lay and Andy Lay, our attorney, special attorney for them, have gotten together probably on multiple occasions and revisited the code. And they're having a list of changes they would like to make, many changes that they would like to make. I haven't seen the final draft on that yet. I will ask Patrick to follow up and see where it is. Patrick, I have asked Patrick recently on that, and he just said he dropped the ball on it. But they have met at least 3 times that I know of to come up with proposed changes. And once we get the proposed changes, the proper way to do it is, again, we got to have a public hearing.
Mm-hmm.
We make the announcement for 30 days, we get the public hearing, and then we can have everything in writing. And then, if nobody complains, we can adopt it after the 30 days, and then it goes to the state for their approval.
Yeah.
But I'm agreeing with you. We probably should make a note of that when that comes up. We should discuss.
We'll
that.
probably have a chance to review it.
Yeah, we have
Yeah,
to-
but we should add that. But
We'll
I
have
agree
we'll
with
have
you on
2
that.
chances.
At least
We'll
one.
know.
Yeah, you shouldn't have a junkyard at your house, certainly, but one makes sense.
Okay, and without talking to Patrick too, not to beat the dead horse, but some of those local laws are state from state codes,
Mhm.
and they just hand it down, you know, and just do a
Yeah, it was a boilerplate,
Template,
local
yeah,
law
yeah.
kind of thing. So.
Yep. All right, next one was an email from a resident in concerns with alcohol and marijuana smoking and a splash pad. You know, and not much we can do about that, but I just want to make everybody aware that I think I forwarded everybody the email on that one.
So just for purpose of clarification, the town could, if it wanted to, and I'm not in favor of this, but the only way to rectify that problem is to say there's no smoking anywhere on town property of any kind. But the problem with that is that because you can smoke marijuana any place you can smoke a cigarette. So if you allow somebody to smoke a cigarette in the park, then you got to allow them to smoke marijuana in the park. That's the law. So we could say, okay, there's no smoking, but then the issue becomes who enforces that? Because police aren't going to enforce it.
Yeah.
We're not going to do it.
Be a
So
nice tool to have, though.
Well, we do have the tool because we had signs up over there. Part of the Q County Tobacco Coalition a few years ago, it was probably 5-6 years ago. We do have some signs up over there, it's a smoke-free park, and that, you know, so there are signs over there that it is.
Yeah, the
illegal.
signs are posted.
But then again, who's gonna enforce it? We're gonna call.
I did
know,
go right. start doing one for the playground and the shelter, and I did put on there because I was looking different things. This was a few weeks ago I started it, and then Bob said Farm Boy went away. I said, no tobacco, no vaping, no e-cigarettes, no marijuana. There was a whole list of signs that were pre-made, but we were adding it to the new playground sign. And it did spell each thing out.
I think it's worth putting out.
it's fine to
worth
put it up there,
posting.
but you just have to know that there isn't
Yeah,
anybody that's going to enforce it.
But
At
if a
least
police officer shows up for some reason, he got a complaint and he has to answer it. Be nice to say, look at the sign.
There is no law that
Right?
marijuana has to be. a
Fred,
certain
you've been out
way
on the
from
road.
a playground or school. Wow, that's bad.
It's just never going to happen.
No,
Because
but if he shows up-
no, it's never going to happen. Because we're not going to enforce a sign. We need a law. And because the first time that a police officer goes up and says, hey, look at that sign, they're going to say, you got no right to come. You got a right to talk to me.
Mm.
And they're right.
Mm.
We can't. It's the
And
way
on
the
a-
wor-
on a
it's the way of the
side
world
note,
these
it's not a
days.
It's not a county?
No.
Aren't they backed up by the county?
No.
And on a side note, we did budget money for security cameras around that pavilion this year, so we could
Let's put them, yeah.
look at, further down the road, if it's gonna be an attendance issue where there's gonna be more and more people going there.
And someone
cameras
left a crib
probably should
mattress
be
at the
there.
garbage can the other day.
Okay.
Yeah. They're coming there and cleaning their cars, bringing their trash, I mean, ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, that's craziness. While we're thinking of the park too, we had a concern about dogs. Fred, maybe you can answer this one too. Someone says they got a service dog. Can you ask for documentation or what's this?
The only thing that you can do with now, you could have a service iguana if you want. It's weird because the only two things mentioned in the federal law says any animals, but it mentions dog and it mentions miniature horse. You could have a service miniature horse. Because we just went through this at the county. So you can ask them, does this animal provide a service to you? And they say yes. And you say, what's the service? And they say it, helps me with my stress.
Calms down.
Yeah. And you cannot ask for documentation.
Okay.
It's against the law.
So and this is where I had a problem at the farmer's market. Somebody asked if dogs were allowed. I said, no, because Egg and Market says you can't have live animals at the farmer's market. And so I put that up there, but then of course I got grief when somebody had a pit bull that was peeing on the shelter thing as we're getting ready for the market. He's peeing on the post and it was a big pit bull and she wanted to give me a bunch of grief and I just walked away.
So I guess if there's a ag and markets law, it still wouldn't trump a service animal. And we can't ask, we have to take their word for it. You could have a service boa constrictor.
Okay, so that ends that discussion. So regardless of the pit bull, so we can't change. I sent an email out to everybody about the parking lights. parking lot lights behind the pavilion back here. Anybody get a chance? To look?
I didn't get out there.
Yeah, take a look. Let
Yeah.
me know what, I'm sure we're gonna get, I got a couple complaints, about that, and I just wanted to, if you guys don't think it's a big deal, then we'll just say it's not a big deal, and we're not gonna do it, but if you think we need to.
I think the security of the park trumps
More important than
the people sleeping with their bedroom
Pull the
doors
shade
open.
down.
Yeah, get a darker blind.
Where are they, right by the bushes over
Yeah.
there?
What's that? Now, they live, quite a bit away up the hill.
The hill?
Yeah.
It's not,
I,
okay, all right.
I can only tell you, what the, it's been a busy month for people with, with
Suggestions.
suggestions.
Suggestions, that's a better word.
That's a nice word.
I'm trying to be, I know we're being recorded. Okay, next person, email. I sent out a draft of an email. City's going to try to approve next week. Take a look at it. What it is basically the state, they've had it for 8 months now, and they're not doing anything with it. And basically, it's asking to be open and transparent with the process, so we know what's going on with the drinking water and the rules and regs. And so that, so the city is asking the state to be open and transparent as we were when we went through the process, and that's basically what it is. So next thing is the, as you saw, the ARPA money that we thought we're going to get $400,000. We're going to get about 20-something thousand less. We're like $380,000 now. So, which is going to be used for the water main replacement project. And speaking of the water main replacement project, we have Matt Sarbo coming in here to go through the one. He can talk about anything he wants, but we're here to discuss the I&I infiltration study that they have been performing over the last, probably seems like a year now, or more than a year.
I think it's right after, right towards the end of COVID, so probably late, probably about 6-7 months.
Yeah.
But yeah, first of all, Tammy, sorry for leaving these here. This is the bids and some of the contracts printed for the water main replacement project. I know you're supposed to keep these on file for so long.
Yep.
So I'm just returning those. As far as the water main replacement project, just to close the loop on that, we had a pre-construction conference today. Contractor is hoping to start sometime next week. It basically goes from Adams Avenue down to Green Shutters. It's replacing that last stretch. Most of the main in that area has been replaced except that last stretch of water main. So it's a continue build on what we've done on the previous phases. And they would anticipate, I think they're going to be in and out within 2 months. It's a 75-day time period. I think they're going to beat that by quite a bit.
And we're waiting on DOT.
For permit, we reached out to them. I think they'll get a permit. If not tomorrow, at the beginning of next week. I'm sure they just need a little nudge to get along.
I called them as well today too.
Yeah.
The local engineer, and asked them to.
So as far as timing, I mean, the good news is it's early enough in the season where grass restoration and stuff should hopefully be full and thick by fall, and it's not something to be coming back for the spring. Obviously, that's always the hardest part about these projects is getting the contractor to restore it to pre-existing conditions. Does anyone have any questions about the main replacement project before I move on to the sewer study?
Can you, one of the proposals I have on the agenda is to hire a clerk of the work. Can you tell them what your proposals were, what the cost would be if we hired partners to do it?
I mean, I don't know what the town is paying per hour, but standard going rate for clerk of the works, I think, for an engineering firm is, between, let's say, 95 and 115 per hour, depending on their level and experience. I did meet with, after our pre-construction meeting, I believe it's Tom, right? Yeah, I did meet with Tom after the meeting for about an hour and a half. We went through the plans. I will say he was impressive. He seemed pretty sharp. He definitely knows how to read a set of plans. He definitely read through the specs. So I'm confident that he'll be a good hire for you guys. And I think you'll save money hiring him directly than going through a third-party consultant. We went through the type of responsibilities that you would have to do on the field, as far as what documentation you have to take and how our contract's set up. So if you guys choose to do that, from my initial impression, I think you're in good hands.
Okay, all right, so go ahead, Matt.
So we did an engineering study over the last about 6-7 months on inflow and infiltration of stormwater, particularly in Sewer District 1. I don't know, I know most of you who've been on the board for a while are definitely intimately familiar with this problem, but obviously, stormwater does not need to go down the sanitary sewer. It does not need to be treated by the Auburn sewer plant. It's very expensive for you to treat stormwater, send it to Auburn for treatment. So the purpose of the project was really 3 goals. 1, to reduce I&I into the sanitary sewer system. And why is the town of Owasco pays an estimated $320,000 to $451,000 per year and to the city of Auburn for treating clean stormwater that does not need to be treated. 2 is to replace antiquated infrastructure. The area of the avenues, that sewer system is, I believe it's 40s construction. It is old. It is clay tile piping. It is reaching the end of its useful life. So the second goal would be to replace that. And 3 is to prevent sanitary sewer overflows. The picture up at the top where you see all the sewage going down, and most of that's stormwater. This is during a heavy rain event going down into the Owasco outlet. That is a recent picture along the Owasco outlet within the last couple of years. And the picture at the bottom is what, we had the town televise a few sections of piping. I just actually got more televising sections from Bob that we'll look at. But that's a picture of the inside of some of your clay piping. Spider cracked, a little ovulated, and eventually it's going to crack. It's going to, without rehab, you're going to have significant problems. So where is the problem? Well, it's not all of Sewer District 1. Sewer District 1, for those who don't know, basically extends from Martin's Point, all the way up to the city. It's not your per household. You're in the neighborhood of 70 to 100 gallons per day. So it's significantly more. So the cost of treatment, and now the town, if I'm not mistaken, and please correct me if I'm wrong, bills based on metered water use for their sewage treatment. Metered water use does not take into account your foundation or your gutters or whatnot that are not metered going directly into the sanitary sewer. But it's costing the town an average of $692.54 for someone in Sewer District 1, where it's only costing the town 100 to 130 in Sewer District 2 and 3. And if you could break this down further where we can't, I think you'd see some of the newer neighborhoods in Sewer District 1, the Martins Points, the Green Links, the ones that were built in the last 25, 30 years, or even 40 years. I think you'd see they'd be down near the $130 level as well. And you'd find out that the older neighborhoods are probably near the $800, $900 level of what they're actually costing to treat clean stormwater. The town, this is not a new problem. For those of you who've been on the board a while, I mean, you may remember talking this all the way back into the early 2000s. You guys started doing projects to manage stormwater in addition to reduce it. So this is not new. We did a bunch of home inspections. I think it was B&L in combination with town forces. This was in the early 2000s, long before my time here. But what they found, I mean, the information is still fairly relevant, that in sewer district 1, many floor drains, some pumps were all connected to the sanitary sewer. And a floor drain, obviously, if it's a floor drain in your basement, it's likely a foundation drain that goes around your basement and it keeps water from filling up your basement, just like a sump pump would. And it's just draining directly out in the sanitary sewer. And that's why sewer district 1 is such a large private side I&I inflow and infiltration of stormwater influence. And there's really no easy way to correct. You can't go to somebody on, you know, Second Ave and say, hey, you need to remove your floor drain, because they're going to say, where am I putting it? You know, where does this go? I have to keep my basement there's no storm sewer along these roads. So it's difficult to just make them do it without adding some sort of public infrastructure that could help. So existing system, the first 2 on the left you've seen before. I put pictures of a few old manholes. Your manholes range from precast to brick to CMU masonry manholes. And, you know, they're definitely getting antiquated. We found, you know, we did several investigations in this study. You know, we came out when it was raining, we did smoke testing, we did manhole inspections. We looked at camera work. Bob has done significantly more camera work. We'll look at more of that. He just gave me some flash drives for it. We found gutters that enter a sewer system and some pumps that are directly going into sewer systems in this area, in addition to some cross between between catch basins and the sanitary sewer system. Now it is a little unclear if there's a direct connection or the sewer pipe's just so bad and cracked that when we fill it up with smoke, it easily infiltrates into the catch basin. But if we're getting smoke through it, water's coming through it, and there's water drains, it's getting into the sanitary sewer system. So there's a few alternatives the town can consider. You know, one is to do nothing. And, you know, basically those 3 goals I talked, you're not going to meet any of them. The second is to do what you've done in the past, which would be to rehab the sewer and basically focus on the public infrastructure, what you guys can do. You know, that's lining the sewer main, a lot of trenchless technology, you know, lining manholes. You're going to get some inflow and infiltration reduction, but you're not going to get major inflow infiltration reduction. And this is proven by some of your past projects. And we detail this in the report that, you know, the flows in Owasco really haven't gone up a lot with new development, even in sewer district 1, because you did some projects, but they really haven't decreased to the point where they would be in line with today. If you constructed a system today, they're well over what, you know, you would anticipate flows from a system today. So you'll get some I&I reduction, you'll get some, you know, help prevent some sewer overflows, but you're not going to do a great job at it. You know, you will replace and extend the life of antiquated assets, just focusing on public side. The second is to construct public infrastructure with a focus on private sewer separation. And that's more, or the third way, that's more to give homeowners and individuals the infrastructure available at their property that they can then go in turn separate their sewer and prevent so much stormwater from coming in the system. This alternative is not to go and do internal plumbing. The Office of State Comptroller has a problem with that. Additionally, it's very expensive to do that under prevailing rate forces. So it's not something that we would recommend. We would just recommend getting the infrastructure in place so it can easily be done. Similar to the way you guys did Sewer District 3. You put the grinder pump in, but the people had to connect to it. So they would be responsible to separating their own laterals in their basements and whatnot and connecting to the storm or the associated sewer system in a way that's going to fix the problem. So alternative 1, and I understand that these figures are very small and you cannot read, and like I said, I'll be sending it out. But basically in the Sewer District 1 area, the areas in blue and yellow, there would be, you would basically be upgrading those areas, you know, either lining or replacing the sewer in kind under this alternative, which is just public, focused on the public side. And the areas in orange is fairly new infrastructure. but there's still a lot of combined sewer. So in that areas, you'd be working with the homeowners to get them to because they could disconnect their sewers right now. That is along the outlet. There is a significant drop from their houses down to the outlet. They could disconnect in their basements, their sanitary laterals, run it to the sanitary sewer and take their existing sanitary lateral and run it to grade. So it goes into the outlet because it's just stormwater. It's not sanitary. So that area, that's what the focus would be. Overall, this project to do sub areas 1 through 5 or sewer district 1, your worst areas, you're looking in the $6 to $7 million range of the whole project.
Oh, it gets better.
Yeah. Well, if this one makes you nervous, the next one will make you really nervous. The private separation focus, as I said, homeowners would be responsible for separating individual laterals. But I put up this figure, and this is of Stryker Avenue, of what would this project really entail if we were going to do a private side separation. Well, you need to add in some sort of storm sewer or convert the existing sanitary sewer into storm sewer. With that being said, you're either going to construct a storm sewer, a sanitary sewer, or both, depending on the area and depending on the age and the condition. You're going to be ripping up that entire road. So you're going to have to repave the entire street. And now you have 1960s to 50s cast iron water main that's antiquated underneath there. In all honesty, if you're going to do all that work and do a new street, which possibly, roadside catch basins, curbs, maybe sidewalks, you're going to want to do the water main too. It's going to be recommended. So it's almost a complete street type project where you're replacing all the antiquated utilities, providing modern infrastructure, eliminating that I&I by allowing homeowners to connect to a storm sewer in addition to a sanitary sewer. So it is a very extensive project, and obviously that does not come cheap. And it would be doing this for nearly every street of the avenues. So what would it cost? Well, it's very hard to say. High level, you're in the $25 million range with water main. That's not just sewer. So you're getting, that's new roads. I mean, your streets up in the avenues will look beautiful, new roads, new sidewalks. There's a lot of high level costs. You're in the $25 million range. For me to tell you the exact amount of improvements needed on any street is nearly impossible without getting survey, without doing home inspections to understand how these houses, similar to what we did in Sewer District 3. We went in every home, we figured out exactly everything, how the layout was everything, and then we designed the infrastructure around what would work for your residents, not just putting in blanket infrastructure and saying, hey, you gotta connect. So now that's all that money obviously is before we talk into any grants. I mean, the good news, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, there is a lot of grants that could fund this project. So when you look at a life cycle cost analysis, which obviously, the board has two questions. Do we just focus on the public and we pay Auburn the $320,000 to $450,000 a year to treat clean stormwater? You're going to eventually have to do upgrades in Sewer District 1 regardless, because it's clay piping and it's and some of it's in very poor condition. Upgrades, with sewer lining a pipe is not going to get you the same life expectancy as replacing that clay pipe with brand new PVC pipe. You're looking at a 30-year life expectancy, which would be basically the lifetime of the loan, compared to a 90 or 100-year with precast manholes, new piping. So when we look at a life cycle cost analysis, we took into account several things, and this is spelled out in the report, so don't get drilled into the numbers too much. But alternative one, we estimated if you did all of Sewer District 1, you might see a 7.5% reduction in I&I. Alternative 2, where you're replacing everything, we wrote a 50% reduction in I&I. I think you could get more than that, but we don't want to oversell it. So we said you could cut out about half the I&I reduction. So the savings in alternative 1, just based on yearly paying Auburn savings, would be $28,000 compared to $192,000 in alternative 2. Go on.
Did you take into consideration inflation over the cost for them a year thing? And number 2, did you include the city of Auburn, as most of you know, just installed all the new mag meters and and they put new meters in because they thought that we were underpaying the I&I going into the city. So if their assumption is true, and this would be a good wet weather event to tell you what's going on. 1, the rates are going to go up, and 2, if we were underpaying the I&I before, we're gonna be paying more money for I&I, so that cost is gonna be up over $500,000 to $750,000 a year in treating clean water.
And the one thing is, there was a part of your sewer district, which is right up near the corner, basically where Awaska Road, Havens Ave, that little corner actually was going into the city unmetered, and they were just billing off a metered water use. Now, they just installed meters, from my understanding. I think you're gonna see that 320 to 450 number go up a good chunk, just because they put those meters in, and all those houses are not what you want them to be. But this is in, if I remember correctly, this is in 2021 dollars. So obviously, the cost today is going to be less than the cost tomorrow. But we estimate a payback period of about 36 years. So it's not something, because the cost, if you have more than 50% infiltration reduction, yes, you're going to pay it back sooner. If you have less, it's going to take longer. But we estimate that at about 36 years, this would pay for itself, this project, comparative to doing just a $6 to $7 million sewer rehab project. So that's about where you're at. Now, implementing alternative 2, which is what we would recommend based on the payback period, based on some of these things, is difficult. So how would we do it? And our report really dives into this. And we can talk about it a little bit more after we explain our thought process. This is obviously for the board to decide, but this is just a suggestion from our end, is we would do a phase 1. Let's verify, before you spend $25 million, let's verify on a smaller scale, pick a few different streets and see how well and how much I&I we're actually reducing. We could do, pre and post metering, you'd probably do a little bit more of, let's say, monitoring than you do in your future phases when you're, if and when you find out that, this is the best solution for the town. So we picked 3 areas. We picked an area in sub area 3, 4, and 5, along 3rd Avenue, along Van Dyne Avenue, and along Stryker Avenue. It's about 10% of the total project of the total area is those 3 areas. And so instead of jumping into the whole thing, let's try to focus on a smaller section and make sure we get the results that we believe you will. Second is enforce and update sewer use ordinances. You guys are talking about code. This is a good time to think about your sewer use code and updating it. Homeowner compliance is critical, and that's a lot easier said than done. For those around you for past sewer projects, getting easements can sometimes pose a significant challenge for certain residents, especially if they don't agree with the project. Private laterals need to be separated, so this has to be at the expense of the homeowners. If they don't separate their private laterals, you guys aren't going to see that significant savings. So, on the town's end, you need to make sure there's a feasible way for them to do it, because the project will not be successful without it. So homeowner strategy. This is our suggestion. It's not like you're going to find a lot of places in New York State have done this, because quite honestly, this sewer separation, this I&I focus is kind of new. I mean, up until, the late 90s, early 2000s, you weren't seeing a push for this. They were just making their treatment plants bigger. They're making their pipes bigger. Now it's reversed. It's let's get some of this clean water out of there. So there is a community up in the North Country that has done a similar thing to this. But the only way you're going to get people to separate their sewer laterals, which is going to cost them a few $1,000s a household when they go to do the work, is to provide incentive. Unfortunately, the only way to provide incentive is usually monetary. So we would recommend to enact an excessive sewer use surcharge for only homes that have combined laterals, when there's a feasible way to separate it. If they have a basement drain, but there's no storm sewer they can easily send it to, you're not going to charge them the surcharge, because the infrastructure is not there and they really have no choice. That $500 to $700, we recommend in the $500 to $700 range. And where do we get that number? Well, that's what it's costing the town of Owasco extra for them. So it's really not unfair. They are just paying what they really should pay, compared to other users who aren't sending this clean water into the sewer system. We did, so basically, the only way you would know if it's feasible is to do home inspections. And that would probably be, I would think the way that would work is be a combination of us doing it or another consultant doing it in combination with town forces, training town forces to do it to save on costs on the soft cost end. failure to allow it, an inspection, if people refuse entry from the town and the home, then they would just be charged a sewer use charge and excessive sewer use charge until they complied with the regulations. So, 6 major steps of doing this would be: the public needs to be involved, the public needs to be known, there needs to be many public hearings. Secondly, existing drainage infrastructure in all these areas need to be surveyed. For example, along the outlet, we know the outlet's very capable of taking away stormwater. So there's easy ways for all those homes along the outlet to separate their sewer laterals if they are combined. Step 3 would be conducting initial home inspections to determine if a private lateral, first of all, is combined. Some people may not know. And then what each and every house would need to do to separate their sewer lateral. Now, at this time, we would take in, just like Sewer District 3, where we measured off first floor elevations and we take in all this information so we know what elevation storm sewers and sanitary sewers would have to be at to gravity flow to them. Failure to allow a home inspection will obviously result in the sewer use charge. Step 4 would be to implement a public side improvements. So then we would we design storm and sanitary sewers along each road as necessary to allow for these public side improvements needed to convey both their sanitary and their stormwater away from their homes. Step 5 would be to allow residents a period of time to comply with the code. I think you guys did this in Sewer District 3. If they didn't comply with the code in a certain number of time, they were charged a charge. It would be a similar thing. Step 6 would be to conduct a post sewer separation home inspection to verify that the folks actually did remove their storm and sanitary, and then obviously failure to complete improvements or allow for an inspection would result in that sewer use surcharge. So alternative 2, phase 1, I showed you Stryker Ave before. Up at the top is a similar thing for 3rd Avenue. It would involve maybe running a new stormwater tube all the way out to the outlet. And in addition, there's at the lower right would be Van Dyne Avenue. So what would this phase 1 cost, based on what we know? And obviously, as I said, to really truly define infrastructure, there is a significant amount of engineering that would need to be done on homeowner levels, where we have to get in homes, we have to see things, we have to get the topographic survey, first floor elevations, all that stuff that we didn't have available to us at the time of the study. You're looking at, with water main, about $3 million. So this is about, again, we're in the 10% range of total improvements. These areas that we selected were areas that we felt were pretty bad. So you guys should see good improvement here, in our opinion, based on all the investigative procedures we've done. How would that look with financing? Well, I feel that it's reasonable for you to expect a minimum of 25% grant for a project like this and a maximum of 75 to 80% grant for a project like this. So it's really going to be indicative of how much grant you get. So you're looking at, for just phase 1, it would be an additional $13 to $80 per user per year in Sewer District 1 only. And we would estimate a total INI reduction of about 5%. And that's based on that 50%. So if we actually find out that, hey, doing this work would decrease Sewer District 1 INI by 75%, well, you're going to see more of a savings. So funny, I said there's a lot of grant opportunities now. What do we see? Well, there's 2 loan programs. You guys are probably at this point very familiar with EFC. You're also very familiar with EFC's WIA grant program, which is a 25% grant. There's USDA, which does provide low interest 38-year loans the town would qualify for. You would not qualify for a grant through USDA. But there's 2 big programs that you guys haven't taken advantage of. One is a water quality improvement project, and that's can be up to 80% grant of construction costs. So it's fairly high. And considering that Auburn has sewer overflows, considering that Owasco Lake is impaired, and that the Owasco outlet is being impacted by overflows, this is what the DEC says, not what I say, but this is what the DEC says. I think it adds a pretty good chance for the WQIP grant. Additionally, for those of you, I know all of you know about the American Rescue Act money, but in addition to that American Rescue Act money, there is congressional earmark money now, which hasn't been around in at least 10 years. I mean, I don't remember it ever being around because I wasn't paying attention to it back then, but it hasn't been around since I've been started working, but it used to happen. It was stopped because it was kind of corrupt, but now they've passed those big stimuluses, and all of a sudden, here comes this congressional earmark money. So they have to find ways to spend money on infrastructure. So another big opportunity in congressional funding, community project funding can fund up to 80% of a project, which is even more than the 75% on the max that I showed you.
I did talk to Congressman Cackle's office and Tom Hank's office and put our inquiry into, and Tom gets back from vacation hopefully next week.
So they just did. So basically how this funding works is you have to spend the money, and this is all federal government funding. They are very strict on when it gets spent. It has to be spent in the next fiscal year. So starting October to October. So you guys aren't ready at this current point for it. Otherwise we would have said, hey, why don't you guys apply for it? So to get ready for this congressional funding, you would have to, if you wanted to apply for next year, over this next year, you'd have to try to progress the project through design and almost be ready for construction, is when those are the type of projects that are ready for that congressional money. So if that's what you wanted to do before you spend all the money, obviously you could wait until that, you get the earmark. But I think this project would have a very good chance at getting it. And from what I hear, this is year one. There's 4 more years after this year where they're going to be doing this money minimally.
How long will it take to get us up and running?
Shovel ready. So so that brings me right to the next slide. So the next steps right now is there's a deadline in July. It's at the end of next week. We have to submit the engineering report to EFC, which we will do on your behalf. Then included in our contract is a seeker. So we have to go through the environmental review process. You'll be listed on the IUP. That's just a funding agency thing. You'll submit a full application. You got to go through a bond resolution process, which I don't know. Rick probably knows who your bond counsel is or who you've been using. You go through the bond resolution process, and then you're what's basically called, in most terms, shovel ready. That's not design shovel ready where you're actually physically ready. You're just ready to spend funds. Then you'd go through design, and you'd probably, if you wanted to move on the fastest track, you'd probably apply for grants concurrently with design. Once you had your funding package in order, that's when you'd go out for construction. So I would say that you're constructing this in 2023, 2024 phase 1, and you're testing its effectiveness definitely in 2024 is where you'd be testing its effectiveness. And as long as it was effective to what we are projecting, and we could redo a life cycle cost analysis based on real separation data, because keep in mind, even if we construct it in 2023, you got to give the people, a year-ish to get their contractors on and really test the effectiveness after that. But, and then additional phases would follow in, let's say, 2025 to 2030. So this is not something that you're going to happen overnight. There's obviously a lot of avenues. We're talking $25 million worth of work in today's dollars. Now those have been inflated. I think I inflated it 2 or 3 years out for the phase 1, but project costs are only going to grow in the future. But that's kind of how we see this project being implemented. That's all I have for you today. Like I said, I will email you out the report, which provides a lot more detail than what I just gave you. But I would suggest once you guys can ask me questions today, but once you had time to read through the report and digest it and whatnot, I'd be happy to come back in a workshop type setting and we could discuss it even in further detail.
How long do we have to give you a go or no go?
You have as long as you want. So it's really, but
You're looking at that July 20.
Basically, we'll submit it at the end of next week, regardless. Unless you see, yeah. I mean, it doesn't cost you guys anything to submit it. We've got to get it on that list. If you guys wanted to make major changes to the project, we would, of course, do it, next time the submission's around, we update the report and submit it for you that way.
Phase 1, the 10%, $3 million.
Yes.
That include everything like repaving the roads? et cetera,
Yes.
et cetera. If you
That doesn't include
cost that out,
sidewalks.
it's 27 million, right?
What'd you say?
No, that's for the whole project.
It's 25 million. I mean, phase 1's going to be a little bit more expensive because there's some items like I'll show you that I don't think if you did all this at once, I don't think you'd have to do.
So you
Like
do
for
one-
example, like that lateral, right? If we're doing a new tube to the road in phase 1 on 3rd Ave, we're gonna be able to connect into that
Okay,
for
so,
future phases. So there's a little extra in there, but
okay,
Where you dumping the stormwater?
what, and all of it eventually goes to the outlet, or there's the one creek, I forget the creek that, butts up to the outlet just down here, Striker, yeah, Striker.
All gravity.
Yeah, it'll all be gravity. You'd want to avoid any type of pump station.
And we chose these streets because of the area where they're at. They got a creek behind it, so it's easier to dump the stormwater and that kind of stuff. So
Right.
these were done on purpose.
Right, it was done, we had to separate out a section of sewer, but you couldn't just choose anywhere, because you gotta get stormwater to somewhere. And, you had to make sure it was easy to separate the sanitary through this. So there's been some thinking put into this. I'm not saying that the plan that we outlined, once we actually get back topo survey, once we do the home inspection, I'm not gonna say that some of this infrastructure isn't gonna change, because we only can do based on this high level study. That's where we're at. But of course, we revisit any type of cost. If we ever thought there was a shift, we'd inform the board. But that's about where we're at. As far as sidewalks, you guys can spend as little or as much on it as, let's see if I can pull up the report and I'll tell you what I put in there.
We can always pull that out. That's just a wish list type stuff.
Right, it was more just an allowance at this stage for improvements along the road.
So the utility companies, would they give us new poles, stuff like, can we go underground instead of above ground?
That's not included, but you surely, we could speak with the utility companies about that if you wanted.
That would,
that's a lot of money. I know.
yeah, but a lot of it would be their
You're
cost.
you're right.
If we're gonna do a street, we wanna be like a stereo lane, if we're gonna do it right now and it'll be done forever.
You're right.
And then utilities on the road, you're gonna worry about trimming
Trees.
trees and all that bullshit.
Right. So I mean, it's about $100 a foot for roadway improvements. And, some of that can be, some of this stuff is also, what can you guys, if you guys are looking to do some of this stuff in-house, you can have big savings, whether it's, sidewalks or what. It's really what you want the street to be. We don't have to put in curbs. We don't have to do that, or you can do that. The whole thing's gonna be dug up. So I definitely think there's gotta be some vision on the board's end of what do you want to put into it? Obviously we're not putting brick roads. I mean, on $100 linear foot, you're mainly looking at paving what you have there, maybe a curb and a sidewalk.
I think it'd be important to do it well, because if it's an example for the rest of the town, doing it right for that phase one might make it easier to have others comply when it's their turn.
Right, and these are fairly healthy budgets. I'm not going to say we're way conservative on costs, but I do believe in today's market, we could do it for this phase for this amount. We have a
Not the tax money.
Well, not grant money.
How much you gonna get?
Well, I think we don't have to go forward until we find out. That's the beauty of it.
Well, with that infrastructure thing that's going on in Congress, that might
There's
be
a
a
lot of
good
money out
timing.
there. I agree with
Right.
you.
Yeah, they were looking for shovel-ready projects.
That
in the
might
next
be
3 to 4
timing,
years.
good timing.
We might
Right.
have to get on.
And then we got if it's successful, we got 4 more years to apply for that.
And you can do, future phases, and it might be something that they kick around for, I mean, it was every year in the past, and then they stopped it because of corruption. So,
Imagine that.
Corruption.
Well, we've solved the corruption problem now.
Oh, but Fred,
It's a perfect time to bring it back.
well, now what it is, they just have to sign something like a notarized form saying they have no personal ties to the money. So that's,
Right.
that's their solution.
That fixes it.
no PG.
So, and I like the fact that, you're gonna send it to us, that, I've had a chance to talk to Matt, many conversations over the last 8 months. And so this is nothing new for me, but I took the numbers. I didn't see the numbers until today. So, so if you want to have another workshop meeting, you want to have a Zoom meeting, you want to, whatever the board wants to do going forward, I think it's great. You can,
I'd like to see us progress a little bit and go forward a little. Keep on
So
going forward.
we'll be back with seeker stuff. I don't think that's gonna change for phase one. But, let me get you guys the final copy of the report, let you guys look through it, read it. I'm sure Rick's gonna wanna read it a little bit because there is some legal stuff in there that of how this thing would be implemented. You know, you guys need to really think about how you're gonna get the homeowners to comply. We suggested things, you guys may have better ideas or different ideas, and you know, we'd be happy to discuss it all with you.
Outside of phase one, where you said you're going into a creek, the other ones, how did you budget for,
Tying back into that pipe.
paying people for easements to go from on the west side of Owasco Road to the outlet? Because I think that's how you propose.
So right now, so there is like Van Dyne Avenue, you have a tube that goes across that pump station property that goes out there.
That's
Yeah.
ours though.
Right, that's yours.
Yeah.
That's yours. Then like the other one is by the plaza on Third Ave, that whatever that street is, right where the
Swiss Street.
yeah, Swift Street, right where the tank is. So there's one there. It is gonna be hard to get people to give stormwater easements. Now, in a $25 million project, you know, there's when you're looking at, you know, 20% contingency, there's a lot of money in there for that type of thing. So, you know, if you may end up spending money on stormwater easements, but the stormwater does have some existing infrastructure. Whether the state lets you tie into their existing stormwater infrastructure or not, I don't know. I don't know if Bob's ever even tried, because they can be kind of difficult sometimes.
We tried when we paved the road a few years ago, remember it?
Yeah, but they want an easement from the homeowner and the homeowner wouldn't give it, so they wouldn't
We
put
couldn't
it.
produce the easement from years ago, headed down to the outlet.
Right, and there's gonna be easement work, there's definitely gonna be legal work in this, and this does account for engineering, legal, and administrative work. Now, I can't tell you you're gonna be able to pay $1 million for an easement to go across someone's property, that's just not feasible.
You need to go across my property.
Right.
$1 million, we're done deal.
Done. I'll give you 500. The other thing I want to point out too is that, as Matt pointed out, all the problems mostly is here in the avenues. So basically what's happening right now is all the other places in sewer district too, so they're subsidizing. the avenue. You know, and so if we ever took them out, put them on their own, their rates would quadruple, you know, if it weren't for the other people subsidizing the rates. So, you know, yeah, those people ought to be very thankful, you know, that we got these sewer districts that's based on the water rates. We did it on meter thing, they'd be screwed. You know, as you saw from the charts, you know, right there.
I think that really tells a lot. And, you know, you don't want to, now I can't tell you that, you know, you may have to do home inspections. And I think from a legal end, you'd have to rely on your attorneys. You know, I don't think you can pick on certain neighborhoods without looking at other neighborhoods. You know, this project's obviously in a sewer district 1 project, so you may have to do home inspections throughout Martin's Point, throughout other areas, just to confirm that they are actually disconnected. And whatnot, you know, to be fair across the board, even though we know that Martin's Point is, and we know that Greenlink's Turn is, unless, you know, someone did something funky in their basement in the recent years, you're not gonna find anything over there.
Any other questions for Matt?
Thanks,
Yeah,
man.
we're-
No, we'll have the, I mean, obviously we have the opportunity once we have a little bit of chance to digest all that material. Because there's only about 8 words that I understand, so, I know lateral means to the side, but I don't know where that is. I couldn't point to it in my house,
Right.
so,
Does income have anything to do for some
I'll
of
just
these
have to try and
grants,
figure it out.
medium
Right, and if you
income?
have questions,
We don't.
So they won't look at medium income.
Our median income's about 87,000 per house compared to other
Is that
places.
what
Don't
it
call
is
you
in
in
Alaska?
August, right?
It's,
August what?
yeah, we're about
August
14,000.
28th. August 28th.
it's a Saturday.
We'll have
Normally I'll answer my
somebody
phone on
know.
Saturdays, but that's
No,
Saturday.
no, you better not.
We
We're already
get
put
the
on
conventional
honeymoon
180%.
We're going to a mini moon because we have another wedding the weekend
87?
after, a really good friend of ours.
You don't do too bad.
And I'm also you have my
87,000.
contact.
Yeah,
Does
yeah,
anyone want
thank
another
you.
card or are you good?
No, we're good, yeah.
I think I still have it too, thank you.
Oh, I want your card.
Timmy wants to burn it for his
I want your
fireplace.
card.
You're
I'm
not
gonna
going
need
to,
you
you
for
know,
other
you need
things,
to take notes.
other
Yeah.
projects. I'll be calling you.
That's fine.
It's a lot of money.
I think it's worth it, though.
Yeah, I think it's something that needs to be done.
well, when you look at what we're paying out right now, I mean,
It's gonna get worse with.
yeah,
without-
I just don't want you guys to think that there's gonna be no raise. It's gonna pay for the project itself, because it won't.
Yeah.
I really don't think you're gonna
We won't
offset
see
it.
it, but our
It's the right thing to do, though, whether,
Well, you're gonna have to make improvements one way or the
Anyway.
other, yeah. And you're getting more than just a new sewer out of it. You know, you're getting your roads, which a lot of the Avenues roads, you know, aren't, it's not like they're brand new and you're
The
getting.
value of those houses will go up.
Oh, absolutely. It's really what they call a complete streets project. I mean, and
Actually, though, you don't have to pave any streets.
but I mean, another
Fix the
thing is
water lines for a
coordinating
long time.
Water,
CHIPS
sewer.
money with the streets too.
Just the manholes, if you look at these manholes, because I've been to sewer blockages where the manholes, they have brick on top, the brick falls.
Oh,
in,
yeah.
Blocks up the sewer backs up, and we're doing.
Bruno has to reach in there and grab the
We're
brick.
doing emergency digging in the street at
Who pays
3
for
o'clock
it?
in the
Just
morning.
sewer one pays for it, or who
That-
pays for it?
That particular project, because you guys have districts, you have to charge them per district. So unless you can say there's a benefit for sewer district 2 or sewer district 3, it's just gonna be sewer district 1 users that pay for it.
Which is unfair, because like, for example, Green Links, Martin Point, they're already separated, so they actually gotta pay for
Improvements.
improvements to
To
the
other
avenues
streets.
because they're in the district, so that's just the way it's
So
set
I
up.
just wondered how it was
So,
gonna
and
work.
it's, so,
They're not gonna be happy about it.
but again, they're gonna save in the long run. So that's, like, as Tony said, it's the right thing to do, in my opinion. But-
Yeah, I mean, you gotta really, on this project, look out 30 years. And you look at decisions that boards made 30 years ago, good or bad or indifferent. This is kind of one of the ones where if you look out 30 years, is your community gonna be in a much better spot later on? And I think you will.
It's gonna benefit people behind us.
You and I will only be 113, 114.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They'll
so
benefit
You're
the
not the
town.
typical engineer, you gave us back the HDMI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One dispatch.
We'll put that right away.
Take it out.
All right, does anybody, so we're all set with Matt, any questions on that? No.
Very good, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, the next thing on the new business was just that we fund the watershed inspection program, and longtime employee Andrew Snell, his wife took the job with the school district in Saratoga Springs, and so she left for a higher paying job, and so he quit, and we hired a new inspector. That person starts next week. Old business, again, I hand delivered the easements for this water main replacement project personally. Talked to every homeowner except for one. We even got, several back already. Everyone was happy to have the water main replacement project along from Adams Ave to Green Shutters. And so, in part of the construction meeting this morning that we had, we did talk to the contractor, told him to get a hold of Rick, so get a hold of you guys to let you know when we're going to, they want to do it before you open in a launch day, so they want to get in and out before you open for lunch, so the place will be closed back up and get their work done in their driveway, so it wouldn't impact the business there. So they're only going to be boring 3 locations. They're going to be boring somewhere in the middle by the pump station. They're going to be boring across the street at the end of Van Dyne, because it goes from this side of the east side of Wasco Road to Van Dyne across to by the pump house, and then all the way on the west side, all the way down to Green Shutters. And there's one driveway section about 300 foot. They're going to be boring underneath that, and they're going to be boring because there's a creek there. They gotta bore underneath the creek and come back up in that area right there. And then there's one more spot down by Waterford Lane area. They're gonna bore there, but the rest of it's gonna be open.
What size pipe? did you
8
put
inch.
in? 8 inch?
8 inch. Yeah.
I know, do we have big maps here? So if someone
Yes.
comes in, because
Yes.
someone was always coming in.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
all
I
right.
already have. I got maps in my office, and I'll provide. I'll leave it in here.
Yeah.
I'll leave it in here. I
Yeah.
got the contract book, and Rick has been working with bond counsel and insurances and getting the paperwork in place to get the final stuff. But the biggest thing, they are going to have pipe delivered tomorrow. And Bob, they're going to try to stage up at the highway garage, someplace up in there, someplace. But we got to have a place for them to put it,
We just got rid of the other people. We couldn't even patch our parking lot.
Well, I know. Well, it's gonna be out, but we gotta find a place to put it, and it's either better off there than it out of sight, out of mind than it is in the playground area back here,
Can they, how about Emerson Park be perfect?
It's county. It's county, we don't own it, they don't, so it's the best thing for the overall district, so highway garage, general fund, so we got, although it's the water project, so we're gonna be doing that, so. The other update I want to do, let you know about is the surveying of the parking lot over here. We anticipated a budget of about $1,000. Mike O'Neill said he'd do it for $250 plus a chicken barbecue. So we already provided the chicken barbecue, and he's doing it for roughly $250. So and we split that cost with the fire department. So
On a similar note, I am supposed to go next Wednesday, I think, to the fire commissioners meeting to talk about the hamlet and
Okay.
the property up there. Assuming I got a work trip to Virginia Monday, coming back Wednesday. So as long as I get back in time, I'll get up there. If not, I'll have to do it next month. But
Yeah. Okay, and from what I talked to, the fire chief, he says he just soon get rid of the damn property.
yeah,
So-
I mean, I got to go up there and look at it and see what it actually, what the, dimensions look like and whatnot, but.
Yeah. And we already did the water main replacement update, so good. Okay. Any other questions so far? All right, good. We got, I think, 4 resolutions here to go through. First resolution is to withdraw and expend up to the $59,000. This is the thing that was tabled last month.
Move.
So,
Second.
any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next one, similar situation, to withdraw up to $200,000 for the water district repair replacement. We talked extensively before about funding the project, and we're, shifting money. It's like a shell game here we're doing right now. It's, we got a reserve fund that was set up, and we're trying to take money out of the reserve fund to go forward with that
I'll make a motion for that.
Awesome.
discussion.
So, I'll ball this all up into one for this resolution and the next resolution. Again, I got these today. I understand that we're moving money. It's not like but still, this is a total of $700,000 that I gotta, kind of wrap my head around midday to vote on at 4:00 in the afternoon on Thursday, when I got the information. I mean, our final agenda for today came at like 10 minutes to 3. So 10 minutes to 3, an hour before the meeting starts.
Yeah.
It's just absurd I mean, I work till 5. I take an hour off every time we have a meeting. And so I don't even have the previous night to look at the stuff, it's crazy to me. I think that we did do a little bit better. I want to give credit where credit's due. I think the communication was a little bit better this month. I think that we were getting some stuff kind of right along, but the idea that we're still getting stuff up to minutes before it's crazy. I'm fully expecting sometime down the road at 10 minutes to 3 on a meeting night, you're going to ask me to spend $25 million on a water project, and I'm going to have like 8 seconds to decide. So it's crazy. So moving forward, even though it's not going to matter, I'm a no on anything that I get on the day unless it's an emergency, I'm a no. I'm not going to vote for anything that I haven't had time to look at.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, but when we do agendas, we don't really have to have all this stuff on the agenda. We just got to have a topic when we put
Yeah, that's correct. And I think our town's a little bit different. We have the actual text of the resolutions done before the meeting, not just the topics that you might see at a school board, I see in other meetings. One thing to alleviate Fred's concern is maybe the town bookkeeper could copy all of us when she's thinking about it. You got, because her email to Ed was on June 29th. It's a holiday weekend. And then Ed gave it to me yesterday, and I said, forward Darcel's email to the entire town board so they know what the issues are, and I'll work on the resolutions in the morning, which I did. So maybe if the town bookkeeper can send, this is what I think the town board should consider at your next meeting, at least you guys are starting to think about moving around these thousands of dollars, and instead of focusing just on the text of a resolution that I might have to put in place based on her recommendation and Ed's direction, you guys at least know, oh boy, thinking about this on this project, or thinking about that on that. So that could be something that she could do.
Because
and
I
as
gotta-
directed by the supervisor.
Yeah, because I got to imagine that we had to know even before the 29th that or somebody had to know. I mean, we didn't make a decision, 5 days ago that we were going to move almost $1 million. We didn't make that decision 5 days ago. If we did, we're putting a whole lot of faith in our bookkeeper, that's basically, running the operation here.
Or no, I can go back and look at previous things where we talked about how we're gonna fund the project, how we're gonna take the $400,000 from the Recovery Act and use that. We have money in a reserve account to do that with the actual, so it's not something that no one's ever heard before. We've talked about it for 6 months now. And so it's just nothing informal was actually in place until, and again, unfortunately, the holiday weekend and we get the stuff, and I didn't actually, and I thought I forwarded it when I got it from Darcel on the 29th. Obviously I didn't, so when I looked at it, I said, oh shit, here we go. And then, and
Fred's gonna get me tonight.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking.
so I said, does it have to get done? Yeah. Why? Because it's time sensitive. And so do we, and in order to pay our bills in a timely fashion and not have to, create more work down the road, it is on the agenda to be approved because it's the right thing to do when we find out about these things. Do I know these details before? How the hell am I supposed to know this shit?
Well,
That's what pay somebody.
Well, that's a problem. I don't think Fred wants to see any money moved and you don't
Yeah.
know and.
Well,
we
and
don't
that's-
know.
But if she forwards,
I do
gives some
know.
rationale.
I do know because we
We're dependent
talked
on the
about it, and in my mind, I know where the money's coming from because I deal with it on a daily basis. You guys don't
Mhm.
deal with it on a daily basis, so.
well, the other
comfortable
problem
with
is the same problem that we've been talking about for a couple of years. I mean, we meet at 4:00 in the afternoon for the meeting. Like I said, I've got zero time in between. I want to be clear. I am not on the clock for the county right now. I'm not on the clock for the county right now. I call a lot of service in the parking lot,
Yeah.
so I don't have any time to look at this stuff when it's the day of the meeting. Now, if you want to move the meeting to 7, that gives me 2-3 hours to,
I'd rather have you at the dark.
There.
so that's that. And
You got your hands slapped.
we
Yeah, I got
move
it.
forward.
Okay.
All right, any other discussion? You want to do a roll call, Tammy?
Councilman Cornelius,
No,
Councilman Cachardi.
Yes.
Councilman Kerstetter,
Yes.
Councilman Vitale,
Yes.
Supervisor Wagner.
Yes. Okay, then the next one is to, same thing.
I'll make a motion for this, I'll second.
Okay, that was Fred and Tim? Or was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, is there discussion?
Yes. The board could leave it up to the supervisor to decide with the bookkeeper, or the board could decide now. There's 2 types of things that are kind of in the air, the interest rate and the term. I don't know. I drafted this based on the email from Darcel that we all saw. So, I'm fine leaving it to them to look at the details when it's flushed out, but I wanted to let you know that there's a range, 1 to 1.25 she was recommending. and a
The
term of
range is from
12.
bond council, what the typical,
Sorry?
the recommendation is from 1 to 1.2 is what the recommendation from
Yeah.
bond council was to go forward, and that's what the typical interest rate is for that type of project. So.
But we
it's
gotta
up-
pick one or the other.
It's up to us. We're borrowing from our one
Yes.
fund,
Mhm.
and when the money comes in, we're putting it back to the other fund. So we're shifting.
and that was, I did read through that correspondence. That was recommended to us by,
I believe it was,
there was a couple of different
Bond, Shennick and
different
King, I think it was.
places.
Yeah,
Was it Matt Wells?
Matt Wells, yes.
Yeah.
I guess,
And Municipal Solutions as well, you know, they were both involved in it.
well, and I guess that this is partially or predominantly my own ignorance to, you know, I haven't educated myself, I guess, as much as I should as far as our personnel and their capabilities and stuff. So I am, you know, borrowing from yourself, and I'm sure that this is right, and I'm sure that
Oh, yeah,
everything's okay. But, you know, I like to know, and I think that it did say in the thing that this was a recommendation from outside and not just something that we came up with on our own.
Yeah, that was their recommendation, and it's required by law that we have to charge an interest rate, and we can't, you know, because it's taken from a special. If you look at most of you know this, but it's a rehab. We have highway, general, 1 water district, and 3 sewer districts. We have actually 6 mini corporations within one organization. So, you know, the only, you know, and you can't mix and match anything within those different corporations without proper procedures. So, you know, with this, if we're taking money from one reserve, from one fund, we have to take it to another fund. It's legal by New York State standards, but you have to charge an interest rate. So it's up to us, what interest rate do you want to, you know, to me, I'd rather go with the least expensive interest rate, because we're, you know, because it may be reversed down the road.
And how do we track the repayment of that? It's just, it'll be in the expenditures every month that we repaid ourselves.
We have to report this, if we adopt this, we have to report this to Bond Council and to Municipal Solutions, and they will track it for us. And we have a indebtedness form, which I forward to everybody this year, what the indebtedness to the town is, and we have to have tables for each one to say what the interest rate is, what the compound interest is, and what it is going forward. So it's tracked and we had to get audited, and our auditors track it as well.
Okay.
So, and we can go, so
Yeah,
I would.
I don't know about a form, but I might have missed that email, but
Yeah.
maybe some type of correspondence from either the bookkeeper or the supervisor at the end of this, you know, reflecting how much you get when you get a mortgage payoff or a loan payoff, you know, please accept this letter. You know, it's a letter from Ed to either the sewer district or something, Town of Wasco Sewer District, and please be advised that the loan paid, you know, has been paid in full as of this date, something like that, to show up.
To show that it's resolved.
It's resolved,
So-
yeah, it's closed, The
So
matter's closed and paid in full.
Do you guys, I mean, want to go 1% or 1.25? That's the bottom line right
We'll
now.
leave it to Ed to work with.
I'm okay with you making that decision at the.
Yeah. In the term too,
Yeah.
because you might do this next week, you might do it a month from now, who knows what,
All right.
the Fed might make a change.
We're gonna do
2 weeks
what's
from
best
now.
interest of the town.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's all we're gonna do.
Yeah.
Okay,
Exactly.
so we have a motion, we have a second. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Cornelius.
No.
Councilman Gucciardi.
Yes.
Councilman Kerstetter.
Yes.
Councilman Vitale.
Yes.
Supervisor Wagner.
Yes. Okay, next one, the resolution to hire Tom Simone as underground facilities coordinator to manage the water main replacement project. Basically, it's a part-time position to be done on a as-needed position. So if the contractors work, he works. If they don't work, he doesn't work. And at a rate of $50 per hour.
And this is the.
This is a civil service, when I call civil service, this is a position that the previous clerk of the works have held for.
So that's what I'm saying. This
Yes.
says underground facility coordinator.
Yes,
And previously we were talking clerk of the works.
yeah, well, that's, it's the same.
Same thing. All right, that's all I needed.
The civil service does not have,
Is he a contractor or an employee of ours?
he said he'll be employee.
Fred, this is the guy they say that interviewed.
Right.
He
Yeah.
interviewed.
Yeah.
And he was happy.
Yeah,
with it.
that's what I thought. I was just
Yeah.
confused by
Yeah,
the two
because civil
different
service
titles.
doesn't have a clerk of the works
Got it.
position. So the other thing is, what I found out today is we never actually removed the previous one. What was his name? He's still in there. He got to an MSD form to remove him and to, if this is approved, to put the new person in to replace that old person that was there. So we've had 2 or 3 different people in this position prior to this.
Okay.
So that's it. So is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Discussion? Want to do roll call?
Councilman Cornelius?
Yes.
Councilman Cachardi?
Yes.
Councilman Kerstetter?
Yes.
Councilman Vitale?
Yes.
Supervisor Wagner?
Yes. The audit and payment of claims?
Motion.
For a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Councilman
call.
Cornelius?
Yes.
Councilman Cachardi?
Yes.
Councilman Kerstetter?
I'm gonna abstain.
Councilman,
'Cause I haven't
I'm sorry.
Abstained yet. I need to do feeling.
Councilman Vitale?
Yeah.
Supervisor Wagner?
Yes. Then we got the recommended budget modifications.
I'll make a motion for those.
Second.
Okay,
So looking through, anything that should be jumping out at me, because it's not.
now, I don't see anything.
Okay.
So,
All right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
Any
was there a
opposed?
motion? There wasn't a motion.
I made a motion.
Yeah.
Oh, you
So
did?
I
Tony
think
seconded.
Tony seconded.
Yeah.
Or we're missing a page for it,
Yeah.
but we can just move it down. to
Yeah,
executive
yeah,
session.
okay, roll call, okay. So
Okay.
Timmy and Tony?
Yep.
All in favor?
Okay, so we're gonna have a quick adjournment to executive
And
session.
actually,
I'll make a motion for that.
you want to stick around for the real quick executive session? Huh?
We're
The
talking about
contract
contract
stuff?
negotiations.
Who made it?
I made the first one. And did somebody else?
Stick around.
second?
I'll second. What do you need, a second?
There's nobody
Yeah,
else.
for the
I'll
executive
second it.
session.
Okay, we're gonna turn.
Yeah, we're gonna turn this off. There's no business to be